Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. My name is Chris. Another single note video, patchouli. Yes, this patchouli lover here, and by the way, it's not just for hippies anymore. This patchouli lover has had a channel for almost 4 years. I've had a channel for about 3.5 years, and I've never done a patchouli video. It's another one that seemed a little bit daunting. Patchouli is in so many fragrances. It's in most fragrances, by the way. The reason being, it gives fragrances longevity. So if you have a long-wearing fragrance, chances are it's going to have patchouli in the mix. So for that reason, I narrowed it down to 15. I just did a sandalwood video and I had 25 fragrances, so that took a long time. So I said, let's make this one 15. So to make this video, it had to be a patchouli dominant perfume. There would be no question that the fragrances that I'm showing are patchouli dominant. And again, I think I have run the gamut. I tried to show, there's some expensive perfumes in here. There are some designer fragrances. Patchouli is a very unisex note. Some are leaning feminine, some leaning masculine, most of them right down the middle, in my opinion. And with that, I'm gonna get started. But before I get started, if you have any favorite patchouli fragrances you wanna share with us, listen, everybody reads the comments. We enjoy the comments. Let us all know down below. And with that, I'm gonna grab and go. All right, why don't we get the most obvious one out of the way? If you've been following me, you know this perfume is going to be in this list. It is Coromandel, the EDP. I mean, this is a lifer for me. This is such an elegant patchouli fragrance, and it has all the things that I love about a perfume, especially in the wintertime or the cold months. There's patchouli, there's amber, there's incense. There's a sweetness. The sweetness in here happens to be white chocolate. And of course, it's very ambery. It's very, very ambery. The patchouli in here is earthy. So it has an earthy type of patchouli, and it can go a little bit into that wet concrete zone just for a bit. But I think the sweetness from the white chocolate, the ambery notes, the little bit of incense, all kind of are mixed so well that it just doesn't become overwhelmingly earthy. There is a hefty dose of amber, so this is very, very ambery. So that heavy, ambery background or base really calms down the earthiness in this patchouli. I can definitely see this being, somebody's signature scent. The next one is Molecule 01. Plus patchouli. This one, I got a free sample in some order I placed. And I think it was from Perfumology. They give you a lot of samples when you place an order. And my mom and I sent a sample to my mom because I knew she would love it. And Picky Lori, she doesn't like very much, but she does like patchouli and she likes woody fragrances. We both smelled this and we're like, oh my gosh, this smells so good. I bought her a bottle and I bought myself a bottle. And I think the reason, so this is ISOE Super. I think it's only like 2 notes. ISOE Super with patchouli. Very simple. This is a fairly linear fragrance, but I think the reason why I love this so much is that it reminds me of one of my favorite Jo Malone fragrances, Oud and Bergamot. So if you love, gosh, it smells so good. If you like that perfume, you're going to love this fragrance. And when my mom was wearing this, I could smell it on her all day. She kind of became a little bit anosmic as the day wore on, but I think this is quite beautiful. It doesn't last forever, but it's not gone in a whisper. It's not gone in an hour, and it is soft. It's understated, but another one that you could definitely wear to work and not be, too overbearing. All right, why don't we go with a couple designer patchouli fragrances. One of my very favorite, I had to have a fruitchouli. And one of my favorite fruitchoulis is right here, Angel EDT. This is a less polarizing form of Angel Eau de Parfum, which frankly, I don't love all the time. I certainly don't love the opening, but this one is a little bit easier to take. So it has a praline sweetness, and it doesn't have the white chocolate. It has praline instead. And this one has some soft, lovely, juicy fruits. I want to say apple and like berries or pear or something like that. So it is an easier angel to take. If you hate that, DNA, you're not going to like this. But it is, I've tried many, many flankers. And so far, I still love this one the best. And I have really, really good memories because My daughter, I remember wearing this a lot when my daughter was in, middle school, primary school, middle school. And I wore it a lot, and I did a lot of carpools, and the kids loved it when I would wear it. They'd say, "Oh, Miss Chris, you smell so good." Another really good designer fragrance that is patchouli dominant is this one by Estee Lauder, and it is Radiant Mirage. This is a Quentin Biche little hidden gem. And if you like Gris Dior, if you like that fragrance, you are probably going to like this perfume as well. I don't even think they share any notes other than patchouli. Other than that, they go in opposite direction. They go in different directions, but they still are in the same ballpark, like they're outfielders. So they're very, very close in a ballpark with some differences. Gris Dior has a lot of oak moss. That's very oak moss dominant, and it has a pretty prominent rose. Whereas I think the flower in here is jasmine. The jasmine's not as prominent, and this has pink pepper. I do get a sweetness. I get a fruity sweetness, whether it's like dark fruit, like plum or apricot. So I get a nice sweetness. Smells really, really good. Now, if you have Gris Dior, do you need this? Probably not. They're that similar, but it is lovely and much. And for a time, and when I bought it, it was very, very easy on the pocketbook. I think it's getting a little bit harder to find now. All right, let's go with a few more designers, shall we? Okay. Why don't we go with this one, my newest pickup. I picked this up in the recent Sephora sale. This is Chanel Chance Eau de Toilette. Do I need this? Absolutely no, but I just got it anyway. This is such a classy fragrance. I mean, it's been around for probably 20 years, probably. And in my opinion, it still smells great. Is it going to knock your socks off and, blow your socks off? No, but I think this is a really good, classy fragrance. I think this is an excellent work fragrance, and it is a very, very easy patchouli. It's patchouli and lots of citruses. So I think there's grapefruit and definitely pineapple. This has a really lovely pineapple in here, and I chose it over the Eau de Parfum, which is, so this one is a little bit more youthful. It's a little bit more fresh. It's a little bit more clean version. The Eau de Parfum is a little bit more professional. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say mature, but it's a little bit more Boss Bee. It has more Boss Bee vibes. It's more heavily floral, less citrusy, less fresh, and it has a lot of pink pepper. So those are the differences, and I just thought that this was a very easy reach, a good everyday perfume all year round. Doesn't matter what the weather is, and something that's really, really good for work. It's not going to be overbearing. Another from the designer range from Armani Privé, but the elevated designer. This is Indigo Tanzanite. Man, this smells so good. So the patchouli in here is, I actually smell like a white chocolate. And I checked the notes maybe yesterday. There's no white chocolate. And I think this is the one that has like almond and milk or almond and cream. And I think that, in addition to the other notes in here, are giving me a white chocolate vibe, or mixing with the patchouli, so that the patchouli, instead of coming out like a chocolate patchouli, it's coming out with that, almond and the milk. It's coming out like a white chocolate. So this is very, very addictive. I find this quite addictive. And when I say that, I mean, it's one of those fragrances that when, there are times I spray a perfume and I'm not doing this to myself all day. There are a certain number of perfumes that I am doing that to myself all day. This one is one of them, and it's because it smells so good, but it also is lighter wearing. So this one is another one. Like, I don't wear, for the most part, patchouli dominant fragrances to work, because they can be very strong. And not everyone is a fan of patchouli, including me. I remember when I was in my 20s or early 30s, I did not like patchouli at all. And now I love patchouli. I think it's a great note if it's done well. So another one that is, because it is not loud, it's more quiet, I can definitely get away with it at work. Okay, I have two more designer patchouli fragrances. This one is Coco Noir. I tried so hard to like the original Coco. In fact, one of my coworkers, that's her signature scent, and it smells amazing on her. And I assumed it would smell amazing on myself, and I just could not do it. It's not a crisp perfume. It was too heavy, and I think it was the cloves that killed it. It just killed me. But I can do Coco Noir. This is one of those, Boss Bee fragrances. Whenever I have a black leather jacket that's beautiful that I got from Victoria's Secret when they used to sell clothes. Do you remember that? They sold some really nice clothes. I like that. I wish they wouldn't have given up their clothing line. But I have a beautiful black leather jacket. It's a motorcycle jacket. And every time I wear that, I always choose this one because they just seem to go hand in hand. It's very sexy. It's very sultry. You know, it's patchouli rose, citruses and sandalwood, basically. A lovely fragrance, very professional, very timeless, very classic. And to me, it's kind of like a very cocoa, you know, the original cocoa minus the cloves, and a less strong, less sweet Coco Mademoiselle came together and had a little offspring, and that's what Coco Noir is to me. Oh man, one of my favorite on this list, and I didn't talk about it for the longest time because it was really hard to find. I was on a wait list I want to say fragrance.ca, and then, you know, I got the alert that they were back in stock and I jumped on it. It's Nightfall Patchouli by Carolina Herrera. And I have seen this pop up somewhere, easy to get, and I will try to link it down below. But it's popping up at other places like some discounter sites. And oh man, I just love this. If you were like me and you love that cinnamon apple pie profile, this is the patchouli version. So this is like cinnamon apple pie patchouli. And usually what gives fragrances that apple pie vibe, it's typically resins, it can be spices, it can be cinnamon, sometimes tobacco, but amber. So if fragrances have those notes or accords in the mix, you're going to come up with something very similar to that apple pie. This one, there are a couple fragrances this does remind me of. It reminds me of the one by Hermes, and I'm totally blanking on the name. And also it reminds me of a Parfum de Marly fragrance. I want to say, is it Herod? I think it's Herod. Or Carlisle. Anyways, it will fall into that category. Very, very unisex. And I would say the patchouli in here is not earthy at all. If anything, it might head into that chocolatey territory. It's more of a cinnamony patchouli to me, but the patchouli cinnamon apple pie of your dreams right here. Man, I love this one. All right, two fragrances that I just never wear. One I bought blindly because it is made by Ariza El Legrand, and these are about the prettiest. Can you see that? Oh my gosh. These are the prettiest bottles of all time. I just love these bottles. And when I found out that it was a patchouli-based fragrance, and I actually ordered it from the website over in France. So if I met a certain spending threshold, I actually was able to get the shipping for free or significantly discounted, and the shipping was rather high if I remember. So I added Horizon to cart, and it's a very, very unisex perfume, and this is my oldest one. This one came out in 1925, so a very classic, very timeless patchouli. It's chocolatey and it's boozy. So it has boozy notes. It's very, very chocolatey, and it is quite earthy. So this is that earthy patchouli, but it's also very chocolatey. And I think the whatever boozy notes, maybe rum, maybe cognac, adds a little bit of sweetness and tames down a little bit of that earthiness, although the earthiness certainly is in here. And it reminds me of another fragrance I'm going to talk about in a minute, Psychedlique. They're very, very similar with some differences. Another one I don't ever wear, and I do think I bought this one blindly too. It is by Paris Monte Carlo, and this Patchouli Nosy Be. Another very earthy, chocolatey patchouli. I do not like the opening of this one. It's a little bit harsh, and it's like a chocolatey patchouli. It doesn't have any of the boozy notes, and it has like a very strong pink pepper, like a pink pepper paste. So it's a little bit harsh in my opinion in the opening. And I would say it reminds me of two other fragrances. It reminds me of it's kind of similar to Coromandel. Coromandel is a lot sweeter. And it reminds me of another one in here, Suma Oriental. That one has a lot more booze and a lot more chocolate. So Patchouli Nosy Be, I'm not wearing it that much, but it is, I think it's a very good unisex patchouli fragrance. And if I didn't mention it already, it has a sweetness to it. It has like an ambery or a vanillic sweetness to it, but it never is super sweet, but it definitely gets more sweet in the dry down for sure. Okay, seeing that I mentioned Psychedlique, I might as well talk about it really quickly. I only have a 5 ml decant, and that's all I need. In fact, I don't even need this one. In many circles, this is considered, you know, like the benchmark patchouli. I do think it's very, very unisex, leaning masculine. It's the most similar to Horizon, in my opinion, out of all the fragrances I have. They're both very, you know, earthy patchoulis. Horizon has a little bit of, you know, it has a little bit of a candied, there's some candied fruits in here. I want to say it has marmalade and, you know, maybe blood orange. Psychedlique has a little bit of a harsher opening. I can't tell you what that's from, but it smells a teensy bit like nail polish remover. Maybe it's the solvent in it. And it's slightly more floral. It has like rose and geranium. So very, very lovely fragrance. The patchouli is definitely chocolatey. It's chocolatey, but it's very, very earthy at the same time. All right, let's talk about some other beautiful fragrances. A newish pickup for me, Suma Oriental. This is a beautiful, boozy, chocolatey patchouli with almond paste. And I do not believe there are almonds in the note profile, and I think it's tonka. So it gives it a warm, there's a warm, sweet, nutty to this. And I want to say there's some sort of spirit, maybe rum, maybe cognac, but a delicious, boozy, chocolatey patchouli that definitely leans gourmand, definitely unisex, and is quite beautiful. The next one is for my fragrance lovers who, you know, enjoy a cleanly formulated brand. And one of my favorite cleanly formulated brands is Henry Rose. This is Dark as Night. This is basically vanilla and patchouli. This is one that has terrific lasting power. Most of the Henry Rose fragrances I find just struggle a little bit with longevity, particularly the more fresh ones. Not so much Queens and Monsters, but some of their fresher ones, the citrusy ones, maybe the vanillic ones. This one, holy moly, lasts forever. One of the very few fragrances that Mr. Perfume Nest, Mr. Picky Pat, actually loves. And when I remember walking by him upstairs the first time I wore it, he actually stopped, spun around and said, "What are you wearing?" That like never happens. And I was wearing Dark as Night. He does like patchouli. He's a patchouli lover and loves to smell it on me. Funny thing is, when I think about it, he doesn't really wear anything that's patchouli heavy, but maybe he likes that on me. And like most Henry Rose fragrances, this has a very green opening, whether it's grass, whether it's ivy, whether it's petitgrain or some mixture. It's very green in the opening. Almost all of them have this green opening, but the dry down is just all about a vanilla and a chocolatey patchouli. It is, it's very pretty. I almost saved the best for last, and I didn't really mean to do that, but I've got two amazing, very, very high-end patchouli fragrances that are definitely not going anywhere. These are, you know, cream of the crop with regards to my fragrances. This one is Patchouli Paris by Guerlain. I used to think, or I first thought that this was a fragrance that you had to be a patchouli lover to enjoy. And as people have been commenting in my videos and have DM'd me over on Instagram, I know people who do not like patchouli love this one. And I think it's interesting because this is a patchouli fragrance. I mean, through and through. So Guerlain did an amazing job really making a patchouli dominant fragrance really, really quite beautiful. And I smelled this when I was at the Neiman Marcus down in Houston. You know, they have a beautiful Guerlain counter, and I remember thinking, man, this smells so good. It's a very green patchouli. It's green, it's a little bit sweet, it has a slightest bit of earthiness, a little bit of that, you know, it's got that chocolatey, so it's very slightly earthy, a little bit green and chocolatey. As this dries down, it becomes less green, a little bit less green, less fresh, less earthy. It becomes a lot more sweet, a lot more vanillic, not going into the gourmand territory, but definitely has a beautiful vanillic sweetness. And in the base, it has this lovely, you know, iris, orris thing. It's just so gorgeous. A little bit, it becomes more powdery. in the dry down, probably from that iris or orris, even though orris tends to be more earthy and creamy. But this thing has tremendous lasting power. Definitely a benchmark patchouli, a beautiful creation, and love it, love it. And of course, you know, if you guys know me, you know, Alexandrite N Patchouli is just, oh my gosh. Let me tell you, if I got like an earthquake warning and I had to go grab 10 perfumes for life, I'm grabbing this one. Not that it matters, but this is definitely probably the most complimented perfume I've ever had, and it completely shocks me because people who compliment me when I wear it tend to wear things that are very floral, very fresh, very sweet, you know, very designer. In fact, two of my coworkers, one of them, her signature scent is Delina. She went completely nuts. Both of them went nuts when they smelled this on me. I've never had people ask me to make a decant. Well, 2 perfumes. This is one. 2 people the day I wore this asked me to make them a sample. One of them went to wear it at a party later and said she got more compliments than she's ever gotten. Her signature scent is Delina and Chloe. So this, I mean, it's not going to be for everybody. And the bummer is this is a little bit, you know, more tricky to buy since they don't have a brick and mortar store. You know, they kind of sell out of their own. They have a unique way of selling, and I've talked about it before, and I'll link down below how to get a sample and that kind of thing. Samples are on other creators' websites here. I've talked about that below, and I'll link that below. But this is a very, I don't know how they do it, but it's an earthy type of patchouli similar to Coromandel. But the other notes in here are just spectacular. And this has probably the prettiest dry down of any perfume I've ever smelled. If you don't get to the dry down, you're missing it. You are missing the magic of this one. It has a little bit of lime. I want to say it has maybe a little bit of ginger. It has cotton flower and linen, you know, to give it this very magical texture. And it has a greenness again from lime, and it has galbanum, which isn't always my favorite note, but it's not bitter. There's a little bit of a greenness without it being bitter, and this one will last literally for 24 hours. And this one happens to be Mr. Picky Pet's favorite fragrance on me. And the only other one, I don't ever talk about discontinued perfumes for obvious reasons. It's frustrating for people. I don't want to hear about discontinued perfumes, but I did have to mention probably one of my favorite fragrances, patchouli fragrances of all time is this one by Tom Ford. It's certainly my favorite Tom Ford fragrance. And this was Tom Ford's favorite fragrance. It's Patchouli Absolute, an absolute masterpiece patchouli. It's ambery, it's earthy. It has a little bit of leather, and leather can be hard for me. Prettiest leather accord I've ever smelled. A little bit of a bay leaf, and I don't even like bay leaf, but it's just a magical, magical perfume. I should have bought 3 backups. So that was it. Some of my most patchouli forward fragrances in my collection. But again, patchouli is in almost anything. It's not in freshies, but it's in almost every other perfume, and it lends a great longevity. So am I going to get rid of any of my patchouli fragrances? And I think so. After going through all these fragrances, seeing that I have some amazing lifer fragrances. This one, Patchouli Nosy Be, is going to go. I don't think I've even worn it once since I purchased it. So that one is going to go. And I think, I hate to do this because I love the bottle, but it's not a good reason. But I haven't worn Horizon at all, and I've had this at least 1.5 years, even though this is one of the prettiest bottles I own. I'm keeping the rest, and is anything on my wish list? Yes, I blind bought 54 by Jukebox. I bought that one, but it's not available other than pre-release. And I don't know how people are getting it. Maybe they've been sent it in PR. I actually bought it from a website called Olfactive. And I emailed their customer service because it's been about 3 weeks since I bought it. I was just checking in, I was wondering when that 54 was going to get sent because I knew I wanted to include it in this video, but they pushed back the wide release till November the 20th. So I'll just include that in an upcoming video. And again, thanks again for sticking around. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already mentioned your favorite patchouli fragrance, let us all know down below. If you like my content, you got something out of it, I would love a thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button with the bell notification so that you are alerted whenever I upload a video. And with that, I'll see you on the next one.